The human being will reach for things when it's hungry eventually, and it will.
Especially when you're told you can't.
Yeah, exactly. And at some point, it'll just go, this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing it. You know what I mean? So it's a matter of doing it the right way. The healthy balance between eating and exercise will always trump a fad diet or abstaining from things.
The information that's out there is still very, very outdated. 70% of all physiological and cognitive diseases, including depression, are food related.
You've got to have a healthy balance between exercise and what you put in your mouth.
You can only really tell whether it's genuine hunger if you're well hydrated, and most of us are not. If you wake up healthy in your body and you have enough provisions just for the day, it's like you have the entire world and all it contains. Welcome to the Diet Doctor podcast, where we discuss the science of nutrition and high performance, offering practical tools for everyday life. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of the Diet Doctor podcast. I've got a very, very dear friend with me. We've been friends for pushing a decade now, and we've been involved in some pretty extensive transformations, both in putting on weight, losing weight, and all the emotional roller coasters that come with it that we've endured together. I'd like to welcome you, Mr. Mathew Nable.
Mood
lovely to have you
buddy.
on here.
Yeah.
Good to have you, bro.
Yeah, lovely to see you, buddy, and pleasure to be on.
Thank you very much. I'll get straight into it. What was the most extreme transformation that you've ever been through?
Well, we did this film, Fell, which is in 2013, and the character was a guy who lost his daughter, and he moves from the city into the bush. And I remember coming to you, and that was the first time I met you. That was right at the beginning of 2013, somewhere around May maybe. Matty Johns referred me to you. I think you'd been talking to Matty about something. And so I figured that this guy, if he's going to live in the bush, then, wouldn't have been eating like he would have in the city. And I just sort of had this idea, he had to grow a beard. That was part of what the director wanted, that he was just like built like a wolf, you know what I mean? Like
pre-modern.
Really lean. I'd just come off a film called Son of a Gun, which was in Perth and in the goldfields at the time. So I was quite heavy. I was on I was doing a lot of resistance training, and the role that I played there was he was a crim. He was the Ewan McGregor's character's right-hand man. So he wasn't just the muscle, he was a bit of a confidant, but he was a bulky sort of a guy. So, and what I did for that was, go to the gym, 3 or 4 times a week and throw some weights around. And I put size on pretty easily, I think because, the background I had playing football, and you do a lot of resistance training.
You're a mesomorph, by it.
So, I probably came into that about meeting you close to 90 kilos.
Mm-hmm.
And we sat down that first time at, I think it was Bill and Tony's in Darlinghurst, and went through, this is what I had to do, and it was all, diet-based really. And as far as training was concerned, it was, a pretty big cardio element that I was doing anyway, and then some, resistance training a couple of days a week. But it was a lot of body to weight stuff. It was a lot of chin-ups and dips and stuff. And I went from about 90 to, I got down to below 76 at one point. So
you were sliced, but
it was a really big change, and it took a little while to shift the first couple of weeks, and then it really did just start to fall off. And it was all, relatively what I was putting in my mouth, and once I I think my body adjusted to it, it came off really quickly, and I felt great. Like it was. I think that the older you get, you can become lighter, which is really, really hard. It's probably a good thing. But that was a big one to shift weight. So
it's easy to put on weight, but isn't it? Yeah,
well, we did another one in 2016 where, you were in the film with me with this thing I'd written called 1%. And, I played he just got out of prison, a president of a MC motorcycle club, and the guys that I was looking at for references at that time were big guys, and they were a lot of them were on the weights, and so I think I ended up, well over 90 kilos for that. And that was training with you at Coogee,
That's
5
right,
days
yeah,
a
at
week.
Titans, yeah.
Yeah. That was a much easier sort of transition because there wasn't any sort of discipline required
good
for
fun to eat.
eating.
Yeah.
It was just like you got to turn up and train, which was never a problem. But we got to hang out a lot, which was great. And then you could eat pretty well what you wanted, within reason.
You love the training anyway.
Yeah, I think training for me is, I try and get in the gym 5 days a week, and it's not for long. It's only for like 40 minutes, but it's a mechanism to help me mentally more than anything. So, at 52, your vanity, dissipates quite a bit. I mean, I always often joke, the only person looking at me is me.
Yeah.
So, it's not a vanity thing. It's just something that I need to regulate my mental health fitness, I think. So I always loved training. So, those two transitions were big transitions either side of it, like they were. And then we did another one where I did a film, a TV show in New Orleans, and we did something for that.
Yeah.
And that was sort of right in between, right in the middle.
Yeah,
so,
that's correct.
We've been through that journey a few times. So it's, and they're really rewarding because you can see, once you see, the change, and the way it's starting to move towards what your goal is, that's when you start to really invest in it and get inspired. I remember talking to you the first time saying, look, the first couple of weeks of a shed like this won't go quick. It might not go quick. You said, but when you get through that, it will fall off.
Yeah, you'll just start to notice things that you haven't noticed before. But a big one for us was the mental health, because we both have a background, and we were discussing that even before we jumped on here. We've both got a background where we struggled with mental health issues for different reasons growing up. So the theme was to always make sure that it was done healthy. Although we looked at, I remember we looked at Christian Bale, the machinist, as the inspiration for that film to drop the weight.
Yeah.
Although we didn't do what he did, which was an apple a day. Not an apple a day keeps the doctor away. An apple a day, and that was it.
Yeah.
That's all he had.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to go down that path, but it was certainly...
We ate copious amounts of food.
We did. We had a lot of food, and there was a lot of training involved, but it was the right food. So, it was a very detailed plan that you gave me, and I've still got it on my laptop at home. Very, very detailed. A lot of vitamins, supplements that we were using at that time as well.
Yeah.
But it was just, it had to be disciplined, like it was... And once I got into the rhythm of it, it was easy. You know what I mean? I think
Comes your life.
You eat, like I go to the gym now and I stay at around 85 kilos, and I can do that and eat what I want because I'll train relatively hard.
Yeah.
And at different stages, you just find yourself eating because it's there.
Yeah.
Like, I'll have some of that, I'll have some of that. And so we're about to do something, a new one again for another role. And I'm really looking forward to, the discipline side of things, but also the motivation you get through change.
Yeah.
And look, the older you get, it's harder to commit yourself to those things. You know what I mean? Like I said, you
because no one's looking.
Well,
we're talking about that. I'm 46 next week.
Yeah.
I'm only not far off you. So
Yeah.
it's for the for the right reasons. Now.
Yeah, no. So look, it's a look. I just want a bit of a challenge. I've had a really rough couple of years in the sense that my youngest brother Aaron passed away from motor neuron disease a couple of months ago.
Yeah, sorry to hear
and so that's he only had it for 20 months, so it took him really quickly for that disease. But this is something that not that it needs to shift or distract me from the grieving process, which is a beast, but it just gives me something to work towards, I think, which is important at this point in my life with what we're going through. So
if you're going to preoccupy your mind, do it something positive.
Something really, really positive. And like I said, it's not for anyone else but for me. I mean, there's a couple of jobs that are coming up that, I don't have to be, super fit or anything. I'm just going to get myself that way. Like I said, for, a bit of a challenge. And also I think at this period of my life, it'll be something that could really help. And so, I'm actually really committed and really looking forward to seeing what I can achieve, this time around. It's not for anything specific, like I said, other than to as a mental health sort of tool to get me through what we're going through.
I'm sure it's going to be amazing. We probably can't say too much about what's in the pipeline, but you do have something that's out at the moment on Stan.
Yeah, look, there's a few things. There's a thing called apple cider vinegar that will come out for Netflix, which I did at the beginning of the year. I'm on a film at the moment, an American film down in Melbourne, so I'll go back and finish that. And then there was quite a bit of stuff that came out over the last couple of years. I was actually very, very busy. So there was something on Paramount, which was the John Ibrahim thing, Last King.
Yeah.
The thing on Stan was a thing called
Transfusion.
Transfusion was a film I wrote and directed with Sam Worthington, and that came out early last year.
Mm-hmm.
So look, I've been remarkably lucky, over the period of 15 years with acting and that pursuit. I've always been working, and you get to a point where I'm at the moment, where I'm middle age, I'm 50, over 50, I'm 52 years of age. So the roles that you used to get, they dry up. I mean, like you become a much more of a character actor and someone who doesn't have to shoulder the responsibility of a show.
You never cared too much about the limelight from day dot when I met you, and I remember clearly we were preparing for Phil, and you had done Riddick with Vin Diesel.
Yeah,
you couldn't care. You didn't give a shit. You said, "Moods, you go to the red carpet event.
No way, I didn't.
Take a friend with you. I'm not interested in being there."
No, look, it's just never. That type of that side of the business is something that you have to deal with, and it's a contract you sign when you do it. So, you get recognised, and there are those things that you've got to attend and be present for.
But it's about the art for you.
Yeah, and I'm not, built. I don't think, I don't think I have the constitution mentally to be that, exposed or have that level of fame. So, and look, you're really not in control of that. I mean, you can do a film and it can blow up, and all of a sudden you're thrust into that position. So, and it's quite cyclical. So if you're on something on TV at the time, then it can be, you recognise that it's quite profuse, and you're you're in it and you're very recognisable. But that can go away as well. If I've been strategic in some of the things I do where I need to have a break from acting. So I had 12 months off and I was like, I'm not doing anything. And people forget, you really just sort of go back into obscurity, which is, fine for me. That's where I sort of love it. But it's just it's a part of the business that you have to, that you've got to be a part of, and you've got to entertain, because that's the contract you sign with it. But it's never been a motivation or
absolutely.
No, it's just.
But it's good that time that you where you've sort of become the wallflower.
Yeah.
You start to. What I noticed is that you had a profound ripple effect on the people around you with the way you were treating yourself with regards to nutrition and exercise.
Yeah.
Had a ripple effect on the family.
Yeah.
Had a ripple effect on mates and their kids.
Yeah.
Loz, his son.
Yeah.
Getting ready for footy.
Yeah.
And they realised, you can do remarkable things with a bit of sacrifice.
Yeah, and look, I remember referring, like you said, a mate's son to you, who was, he was at the beginning
12 or 13.
He was only a young boy.
But a tank.
And to see what you did with him in that 18-month period, and to see him now, like he still looks after his body in a really, really proficient and a disciplined way, but he got that from you, and to look at him now, he looks like amazing physique.
Yeah.
But I remember the first session that you had with him, and I think you all just put him on the rollers and he almost passed out. So
He hadn't done anything correct before.
No, that's right.
Yeah,
so,
he started getting lightheaded.
And like my mate came to me and said, look, he'd seen some of the transformations I'd been through, and he said, my young fella's really interested in having a shot at rugby league, and he needs some guidance and some specific training, and that was because he'd seen my transformations.
That's right. And he pursued that dream and went all the way.
Yeah, no, look, he's done really, really well. So, yeah.
That's amazing. With regards to nutrition, exercise, if you had to pick between the two, what would you say is more important? Is it a balance of both? Can you overcompensate with one over the other?
I think, you got to have a balance so that you can lose weight by not eating, right? That will happen.
Yeah, that's easy. Yeah.
And if you want to go down that path, you can, but it's not sustainable because, you're denying yourself those things isn't what we're built for. So for me, you've got to have a healthy balance between exercise and what you put in your mouth. That to me is the key. There's a lot of fad sort of diets and
plenty.
The intermittent fasting people swear by. I've tried that where you don't eat until lunchtime. I don't know if it made any difference. Look, I'm not having those calories that I normally would have had, but you get so hungry afterwards.
But you're right too, Matt. So like you're a fantastic writer. Like
Yeah.
you've written some amazing films, some amazing TV shows. So writing is a big part of your career as well. So you do a lot behind the scenes, not behind the camera, not just in front of it.
Yep.
And for somebody like yourself, you need to be cognitively, well lubed so you can be able to execute those things.
I don't think not eating is a good thing. Like I do a lot of writing in the mornings, so I probably lost a little bit of weight trying that, but I don't think it's sustainable. And then I heard those ones where people are eating for 5 days and not eating for 2 days. I can think of nothing worse, than going through the 2 days or knowing that the 2 days you weren't eating were approaching. I just don't get it.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. The only sense it makes is nonsense.
Yeah, look, I sort of look at those things and go, look, I know what I've done before with you, and that worked, and particularly for Phil, like I said, which was, probably shifted 12 kilograms and did it a really healthy way and didn't do it over, 4 weeks or, it was done over probably 3 months.
Yeah.
And then
for a reason.
For a
to
reason.
sustain muscle,
Yeah.
preserve muscle and even build it while
Yeah.
shedding fat.
Yeah. And that was the key. You know what I mean? It was like I could see enough early on to go, this is really working. You get motivated and not to change, like this is. People are always looking for, I find, looking for a quick solution. It's like, oh, look at him. I want to get like that quickly. If you're going to do it and sustain it, then in my experience, and I've had a lot of, like I said, shifts between weight and transformations. And, I played rugby league at, probably 90 kilos and then boxed at
Boxing, yeah.
77, 78.
Yeah.
None of those transformations, one came easy or came overnight. Like you got to work at it. So you're going to get there. You will get there. It might take a bit longer than you expected, but, it works. Like the healthy balance between eating and exercise will always work, will always trump a fad diet or abstaining from things. It's just not – and look, I'm 52 years of age. I don't want to abstain from anything.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Life's too short.
Yeah, I'm not training for – like when you were fighting, you had to make weight and you really – I used to watch my brother, starve himself.
He was a great boxer too.
He was. And so he would, he had to get down to 71 kilograms. He'd be walking around at 78 and then he had 2 weeks to, not even that, like 7 days to drop weight. And
It's hard to watch.
Hard to watch, but just as you get older, there's no reason to put yourself through that,
Yeah.
like I said, it's not sustainable because as soon as he'd make weight and fight, mate, he'd, eat and go back to where he was comfortable, walking around out. So for me, to do it properly and to sustain it, it's a real combination of both things. And finding the balance isn't always easy. It's if you there have been times where I've overeaten for periods of time. I guess your stomach stretches, and so you feel hungry when you cut the food. But that takes 2 days to get over.
Yeah,
it regulates, and then you're all good. So also drinking a lot of water makes a big difference to me.
Yeah, massive.
If you're drinking a lot of water, that will suppress an appetite mixed with boredom where you just reach for shit.
Yeah.
So if you're drinking water, and that helps me stay clear as well in my mind. And if I'm doing those things, drinking plenty of fluids, then I know that the system that we followed will work.
Yeah, because often when we're hungry or we think we're hungry, we're not sure whether it's thirst or not because there's a little bit of a lag time between the brain processing whether it's thirst or hunger. You can only really tell whether it's genuine hunger if you're well hydrated, and most of us are not. And I remember when we water loaded.
Yep.
Sometimes we approached certain scenes in the film where you'd be without a shirt, as if you were prepping for a bodybuilding physique contest, partially a weight cut for a fight.
Well, I remember you putting me in a, like you said, I had to get rid of all the, what was it, the subcutaneous fluid.
Oh, you remember the jargon too?
Yeah, but
subcutaneous fluid.
Yeah, so I'd have a bath or,
hot bath.
and then hot bath, get out of it, and it was gone.
Yeah.
So you look 3 kilos, 4 kilos lighter.
Yeah, but vascular too.
Really vascular, and that worked because I had those scenes without a shirt on. So, and they worked, and it gave me that the look that I was after. And the thing was, it didn't have to stay like that. Like it wasn't,
Yeah.
it was like, well, that's for that scene, and I can just go back now and get back on track with what I was doing. So, and also when you get to, your goal, you then for me, it was allowing myself a little bit more latitude with what I was doing. You know what I mean? Like I'd have a beer once a week still, and, come to the weekend, then there was no, I knew nothing I had put in my mouth over that, 24-hour period or 48-hour period was going to make any difference whatsoever, because I was still exercising, and you would go back to, your routine the next day.
The goal with you was to acquire an education because you were doing multiple roles and you had multiple jobs running simultaneously. So you weren't just ever doing just one. Very rarely were you doing just one project.
No.
So we had to make sure that you were healthy first and foremost. It wasn't just about the way you looked.
Yeah.
We were the supplementation was to make sure that there was no micronutrient deficiencies.
Yeah.
We get regular blood tests done. People don't go to those measures anymore.
No, and then that was really important to stay focused as well. Like the supplements, I had never been on those before, and there was quite a lot to take every day, but it did make a difference insofar as like focus and now they're long days. I was the lead on that film, so some jobs you're on, like the job I'm on at the moment, it can be really intensive for 4 or 5 days, and then you sort of shot out, come back for a couple of days, go away, come back again. But if you're the lead in something, then, in that film fell, and to a lesser degree, 1%, but particularly fell, I was in almost every scene.
Yeah.
So, you're doing
Long days,
14-hour days where you're on camera, and there's a lot of waiting in between at different stages to set up. So you got to stay focused so that your performance is, level and it's not uneven. And if you're not, if you haven't got the right fuel in you or the nutrient that you need to stay focused, then it's going to be a problem, because I've been through that before where you're not eating properly and you're not eating the right things, and all of a sudden at 12 o'clock you're ready for a sleep and you're not as focused and on ball as you should be.
You've got lines to remember too.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing. Like some jobs, are really verbose, particularly if you're doing TV, much more so than film sometimes. There's also sometimes there's exposition you've got to get out, so there's a lot of words that you need to remember. And I remember doing, I've done jobs where you're doing, 6 or 7 scenes or even more a day where you're driving it, and you got to remember everything. So, that being healthy, both in exercise and what you're eating, makes a huge difference.
We had to meal prep diligently. I remember. I think I was prepping the food for you back then when I had the cafe in Coogee.
That's right.
And it made such a profound difference, because typically, and we saw this because we were in Perth, we were quite remote when we were doing 1%.
Yeah.
So in between scenes, most of the time, no one had anything to eat.
No, nothing.
No one had anything to eat.
No, and that was because it was, it wasn't a big budget film, and you're getting by on what you could. So, I had those while you were there. We were eating together, but I also had, the information that I'd learnt from you beforehand, how to make this work and what I needed. So, and I try and do that now when I'm on set, like to make sure that I'm fully hydrated and that, I've got enough food in my body, the right type of food, so that, I'm not getting drowsy and that I'm awake and ready to go. Because the truth is, and a lot of people may not know this, there's so much downtime while you're filming. It takes so long to light a scene and prepare the scene, and then the actors come in. you do the scene and often takes less time than it does to actually prepare. So that time that you've got, that downtime, I try and write in that downtime. If I'm in a trailer or a place where I can sit and write, then I'll try and utilise my time the right way. And if I'm not properly fed and have the right food and water in me, then it's really hard. You end up lying down. And I've done that lots of times as well. You just go to sleep. And I don't want to do that. It seems a waste.
You get away with a lot more when you're younger, but as you get older, you start to value these things.
You really feel it, you know what I mean? Like I find myself, I'm 52, so I used to be able to stay up much later at night, and I know this is just age. It's not going to wait for anyone. So I'm seriously in bed by like 9 o'clock most nights,
same.
and I'm going to sleep. Like 10 years ago, that would never happen.
Yeah.
And that's age, people have a joke out of it, and it's been the butt of a lot of jokes, but, older men and women just nodding off, that's age.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So if I can combat that and stay awake and you're more energised with what you do diet-wise, then it makes sense, because that's not waiting for anyone.
Yeah, but it doesn't. When you're well educated about food and well versed about food, and we know from studying the blue zones, some of the longest living communities in the world, and they don't look at age as a detriment. As they get older, they often increase in bone density. We were looking at one community. There was one community in Greenland and another one off the coast of Japan on the island of Okinawa, and there were characters that we were researching. And there was one individual, which was remarkable, probably looked about 65, 70 years of age, but was anywhere between 100 to 105 years of age, completely upright, posture wasn't affected, no hearing aids, no glasses, had to be interrupted during work to talk to him.
Yeah, right.
And they don't see age as a detriment. Their bone density was better over time, because you get a new skeleton every 10 years and it's made out of what you eat.
Yep.
So their bone density got better and better. And it was something, aging is just something that happened. It's not something that debilitated.
Yeah.
And seeing how much you've educated yourself along the years, it's over 10 years now. I think you're probably fitter and healthier now than you ever have been.
Well, my eating habits are much better than what they would have been before, we did what we did. So, that was a real, lesson. I was educated by you in exactly what works and what doesn't work and what you need to do. And like I said, there's a balance that you've got to strike. I mean, you go on holidays with your family and you don't want to be like, eat what you want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who cares? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but for this thing that I'm about to do, like I said, it's at a point in my life where I need, it'll be just healthy for me to go through this again and just, and push myself a little bit. It's just to say, and when you say push yourself, it's not like this is going to be super hard work. It's
dragging
not.
your feet, no.
No, it's just following what works. You know what I mean? Like it's and like you don't have to, abstaining from stuff and denying yourself stuff will never work. It won't, because the human being will reach for things when it's hungry eventually, and it will.
Especially when you're told you can't.
Yeah, exactly. And at some point it'll just go, fuck this. Yeah, I'm doing it. You know what I mean? So it's a matter of doing it the right way.
Yeah.
So, but I'm really looking forward to, seeing what in 8 weeks what we look like, and then 12 weeks what we look like. So, yeah.
What's the transformation that's coming up?
It's not something I really need to do for the film, although it'll sort of tie in with what I need to do with the TV show that we're doing. But like I said, it's something that will give me some motivation and a direction outside of work that will help with what we're going through in my family. It's hard to explain how and articulate how horrible motor neuron disease is, and how my brother passed away from it. I mean, there's a lot of, look, he make it clear, first of all, he's the poor bugger that passed away, and he's now gone. He's got 3 little kids, and it's definition of sad, the whole story. But to care for and watch where he went when he was diagnosed to the end, there's trauma. You know, like I don't care who you are, you to sit there and witness that and hold his hand and stay there every 4 nights a week with him and watch him slowly just have everything taken from him, mate. Like it's hard to explain.
I've witnessed it several times. I witnessed it recently with a friend who passed away from lung cancer and deteriorated quite I'm But I've been in that nuclear medicine diagnosing cancer since 1997. So I'm called in as somewhat of a death doula a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And it's just it's hard to watch. But what's even more difficult is to see how backwards the healthcare system is. Like we're quite blessed in having the facilities and the resources that we have. But the information that's out there is still very, very outdated, and you can see it. You probably witnessed with your brother how he was being treated from a nutrition perspective, and how much you knew more with regards to nutrition than probably the professionals that were looking after him.
Yeah, I mean that was I think in the end because he couldn't eat, he didn't eat for 12 months, so he had a peg in his stomach, so they fed him, so he has to pour it go straight into his stomach because he lost the ability to eat really early, because he had a thing called bulbar onset, which starts in your mouth. But the stuff that they fed, look, it fattened him up, like we used to joke because they were giving him so many calories through this peg.
Liquid calories, liquid which don't
calories.
need any digestive effort,
no,
so it just sits there.
And but in the end, it was his stomach that failed. He couldn't absorb food or water, and when that happened, and look, he took it to the end. I mean, all he could move in the end were his eyebrows. So look, and he was a real.
He was a battler.
Well, he was a tough man, mate, like really hard man. But he was also. The reason that he survived as long as he did and was able to readjust and absorb pain was because of the training that he had done when he was younger and the combat that he put himself through. Like his
tolerance was different,
really high, like high threshold of pain, and had put himself through immense discomfort, voluntarily training. He trained with, Aaron was one of the great amateur boxers we've ever had.
You always mentioned him when we'd be in the gym, whether it would be in the you'd always find a way to bring him up in conversation. I think because you admired him so much with regards to how much effort he put in. Whether
training,
in the
no
gym,
one trained like him.
Yeah.
No one. Like, and one of my other brothers played, close to 100 first grade games for Balmain and give it away really young, and he was athletically, really one of the strongest guys. And every time he was tested at Balmain or wherever he was in the top 1% of strength and fitness, and he trained with Aaron quite often, and I trained with Aaron, when I was boxing, and we didn't look, mate. Be honest, I just didn't train like that. I didn't have it in me to push myself that hard. So he was, but that was the reason in the end. One of the reasons he was able to readjust and absorb what he'd done, because for many people they would have made a choice very early on, or way before, the stage he got to, where with MND we can put your hand up and they'll look after you. He just didn't do that. So that was because of his physicality and his training. That was, like I said, because he'd put himself through so much pain.
I got memories of you bringing him up, whether it was in the gym or whether it was good times, like when I think it was New Year's Eve at Freddie Fittler's house.
Oh yeah.
It was just myself, you, and I think it was Matty Johns.
Matty Johns.
Yeah, it was just the three of us. You had your wives there, and we're having a good old time. But I know how much you loved him and how much you admired him, because you brought him up, whether it was in a scenario like that or whether it was in the gym. He was always on your mind. So my condolences and sorry, but to hear about it.
It's a tough time, mate. It's an ugly part of life, and we're going through it at the moment as a family. So we just we're rallying around each other, and we'll get through it. Like it's part of life, Mood. Like you realise that when Aaron was diagnosed, he had a few tattoos. you got a few tattoos. One of them, the first one was a quote, tomorrow is not promised. And that's the truth, mate.
Absolutely.
We don't know how long we're here for, or
Yeah.
you live every day the best you can. And look, out of all this, you gain really a perspective that otherwise you wouldn't have. I don't sweat the small stuff. There are things we worry about that just don't matter.
Just one day at a time. There's a saying by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He says, if you wake up healthy in your body and you're safe in your where you are, in the vicinity that you are in, and you have enough provisions just for the day, it's like you have the entire world and all it contains.
Yeah, it's very true though, isn't it?
It's day by day.
Yeah.
And when we're growing up, like there's a and this is a very accurate saying. There are three variables that we're always chasing, and it's health, wealth, and time. And when we're younger, we've got health, we've got time, but we don't have wealth. So there's always some sort of a chase. And then when we get, when we're adults, we've got wealth, we've still got our health, but we don't have time because we're too busy working.
Yep.
Then when you get older, you've got wealth, you've got time, but you don't have your health anymore.
No, yeah.
And that doesn't have to be the case. That's the one thing that always bothers me about that saying. It's a beautiful saying, and there's a lot of truth to it. But the one thing that I don't agree with is that as we get older, we have to lose our health, and that's not the case. It's not the case at all.
Yeah. And look, like I said, tomorrow is not promised, and there are things that can, line up to take you out when you get into middle age. I mean, that's just the way it is. But you can help. I want to live as healthy as I can. You know what I mean? Like for me,
A few beautiful families as well.
Yeah, and I don't want to go anywhere yet. Like I'm happy, and like I said, I've had some real issues with mental health over the years with depression and
that's one thing that brought us to
that
quite
was
quickly.
something. Yeah. I mean, I think you were going through something at the time when we first met, and you were in and out of dark places, and I explained I had not long been in a really, really dark spot, so I think there was that. We sort of galvanised over those types of problems, and look, I honestly believe if you're, an adult human being and you've lived some sort of life, then at some stage life will grab you by the back of the neck and hold you under the water, and that can manifest in depression, loneliness, but we're all going to have our struggle with that at some point because life is difficult. My, depression is melancholic and it's in my DNA, so it's not situational, circumstantial. So that's just part of how my life will unfold at different stages that I have to, accept and look down the barrel of it. At some stages it's going to get dark. I've been lucky enough that I've had a lot of people lead me from the dark back into the light at different stages that have made a real difference. But, mental health is, like I said, exercise for me has been the greatest remedy for those types of
There's a direct correlation. 85%. It's the more modest statistics say about 70% of all physiological and cognitive diseases, including depression, are food related.
Yeah, right.
So if you've got the resources to eat well, and we're blessed, we're in Australia.
Yeah,
like we've got such a vast array of foods to choose from, and eating well doesn't have to be bland anymore. You can eat flavour and colour and all sorts of things and still be healthy. So there really is no excuse. So you want to be at least equipped for the obstacles and the hurdles that life will throw at you, because they're going to come.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Around the corner you have no idea, what's going to rear its head and where you're at. So, while you're alive, then look, enjoy yourself. I honestly believe all that, but staying healthy and fit for me are things that are staples that set me up for the other things in my life. Work-wise, but also family-wise, if I feel good about myself in those ways, then I'm much more present with my children who are, they're, nearly 20, 18 and 14 now. So,
wow.
You want to be present for those things. And if I'm on top of my health, then I feel good enough about myself that my mind's not wandering, or I'm not thinking about things. That part of my life nourishes the perspective I have and the amount of time and the energy that I give to the things that matter. I know that. So health and fitness for me is a really big thing. It's something that keeps me on an even keel. And, you know, it's not like that for everyone. People can let themselves go.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll never be in that situation. It just doesn't work for me on a whole heap of levels. So
You got too much on.
yeah, and like I said, it's just such a big part of how I regulate my mental fitness and where I'm at and my perspective. You know, like if that's taken care of, then
Your coping mechanisms.
exactly. The way that you address the problems that are you're confronted with or that arise are much better. Handled and confronted if my mental health is fine, and that is directly correlated to how I treat myself and my training and diet. You know, so it's a big part of how I function.
Yeah.
You know, so
So
like I
it
said,
should be.
this new thing that the thing I'm about to start. Like I said, I'm just using it as a bit of a kickstart motivationally, so that I can deal a little bit better with the things that I'm confronted with at the moment. And grief is, like I said, is a beast, and it comes in waves, and it shifts in shape, and it hits you when you're least likely to experience it, or you think that you're going to experience. So, going on a bit of a transformation is something that I think will. If I can feel good about that and motivate myself to do something like that, it'll be just something that I can, equip myself so that I can handle what's about to get thrown at me. Because it's, we're wading through a lot of trauma and look, he only passed in March, so, my parents, they've lost their youngest son. I don't have any reference for what they're going through.
Yep.
I've lost my brother, but it's different. So I want to be present for those people and for my other brothers and my sister,
It's the least you
and
can do.
my family, my immediate family. So that's why I'm doing it. Yeah,
It's awesome. We've always been family oriented since the day we met. We had that in common. I think I was missing my son at the time. He was living in Boston.
Yeah,
and we connected. The problems were different. The triggers were different.
yeah.
But there was a lot of similarities there nonetheless. Do you see yourself after this role or the next immersing yourself more in the writing? Because you're writing, you write so well.
Look, I've got another book, a novel coming out. It'll come out next year. So I've got a good start on that. I think I'm about 25,000 words into that.
Fantastic.
Like writing and acting, like I said, they sort of, they're good little. You get a reprise from either one of them. Sometimes you be on a job. Like I've done 5 acting jobs this year already, which is
Wow.
I'm very thankful for that. But you're jumping around a little bit on character, and there's a couple of characters that are recurring seasons, so there's no great deal of preparation required because you've already done that character, so you sort of know where you're at and you've got a place to jump off with. But that can get tiring sometimes and exhausting. So writing, when I get a period of time to write fiction, like a novel where I've got an uninterrupted block of 8 weeks, if I'm lucky, or 6 weeks, that's about as happy as I can get. You know what I mean? Like that experience where it's just me every day making shit up.
That's awesome.
Call it what it is. That's what it is.
I see the difference when you were younger, and when you had those blocks where you had time, large chunks of time off. The way you would approach that as a young actor would be very, very different, because you'd be thinking, what am I going to do with myself? What's happening next? You start doubting whether you've got something coming up, or but now you're just like, this is fantastic.
Yeah, and look, you get to
That's
a
maturity.
point as an actor as well, when you're really well established, which I'm lucky enough to be, then you've been around the block so many times, like you get quiet and you go, well, something will come up.
Yeah.
And it always does. You
Yeah,
just
yeah.
go, I've got nothing's on the books at the moment. Well, I'll just go and write for 6 weeks. I'm happy doing
awesome.
that. Awesome. And then
Because I've seen you busy.
yeah, and the phone will ring and go, mate, you've got this, and then you've got that, and you're like, okay, well now I'll go back to this. But and that's how it works, Look, there's only a very, very, very small percentage, tiny, minute percentage of actors that actually are moving from job to job, 2 years in advance. Yeah, I'm booked for 2 years. I'm booked for 3 years. I mean, and they're the people that get given every good script, the opportunity to work with really, really exceptional filmmakers and very, very well lauded filmmakers. And those things are real. So that's happening. There's not many people that get that opportunity. And to be honest, there are people who have moments in their career like that and it will fall away. And that's for most people, very, very well-known actors, that will be the case. So, and the realm I'm in, is not that at all. The realm
Very
I'm
volatile. But for you, it's been very consistent.
super consistent,
Yeah.
and I've been really lucky that way. But I've been really also thankful for the time that I've had off. You know what I mean? Like it's been, like I said, I've had that time to write, and
You're still getting things done.
yeah, no, I've written 4 books now. If I have been one of those actors that were working from job to job every single, I'm not doing any of that.
Yeah.
And I don't know how nourished or happy I would be with that. Like acting for me is not vocational. It's not. I didn't want to be an actor, mate. I wanted to be a writer.
Yeah.
And I, took a few risks. None that were like, life going to change my life in any way. But I wrote something, came from outside the film industry, and made something. My ignorance of the Australian film industry, or film industry in general, probably, helped me a great deal. And all of a sudden I was thrust into this position where I was an actor, and very soon after this film came out, I was in America working, and all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm an actor. Look, for a long time I felt really uncomfortable and fraudulent, like, 'cause I didn't really know what I was doing. And I've
Did
said
Arrow
that.
make you uncomfortable?
No, like by that stage you been around for a long time, so close to 10 years.
You did that quite well.
Yeah, at that point you're really comfortable. But like for the first couple of years, because I had no formal training, I hadn't been to a drama school, I still haven't done any theatre. I've never been asked to do theatre, which is probably a good indication about how people in the theatre community see me. I don't know, but for the first couple of years, you just sort of try not to think too hard about it, because I might get overwhelmed with it. So. Acting, like I said, is not a vocation for me. If someone said to me tomorrow there's no more acting, I'd be disappointed. I would be. I'd be like, oh, that's no good. But I'm not going to fall in a heap. If someone said to me tomorrow you can't write anymore, then that would be a problem. Not only because I'd feel like I'd lost the thing that I really anchor myself with about how I see myself professionally, but I need writing to regulate again my mental health and to look into myself and be comfortable with how I see myself. Acting is sometimes really, really tricky. You're playing different people. I've played some real shitbags over the years, and
they stay with you sometimes.
Yeah, look, and it's so intangible. And am I a good actor? Mate, for every person who says I am, there are people who says I aren't, say I'm not. So, I'm writing, at least I'm really comfortable with, that's how I see myself and how I anchor myself. So acting is always, I feel very grateful for being an actor, and I'm really, I'm proud of most of the stuff that I've done, because I think I've done it honestly.
Yeah.
But it's subjective. It's, all art is subjective. So people, like I said, there's many people who think I'm okay. There's just as many who think
It's just
I
like
suck.
looking at a portrait, it's the same, or a painting, same thing.
How it makes you feel. So, I've had, I had a mate, I've just got back on social media just to try and raise some awareness for MND, but I hadn't been on it for 10 years. And look, I'm back on it thinking, why did I do it? Like,
if it's for a good cause, is there a page that we should
no, not at the moment. I've got to spend
or a charity more that we should.
There will be eventually. I've got to spend some more time setting it up. I just find all through Instagram, it can be a time suck, and for a man my age, with what I have as a family. I just, mate, what other, I find it strange just to be putting photos out. And
I can't stand it. I remember the first time I started an Instagram account, I was with Choc, and we were in Vegas prepping for a fight. We were staying in a motel behind Freddie Roach's gym.
Yep.
And he said, open up an Instagram account, bro. And I said, what for? And he said, just post stuff. I said, yeah, but what am I going to post? And he said, food, food. So start posting about food. Talk about, the stuff that you know about food. And then I remember downloading the app, and back then there were icons like a star and a square.
Yeah.
And I'm used to a keyboard. Right? And not even a keyboard. I like writing too. But I'm used to seeing things on a keyboard like Control, Alt, Delete, and it was just symbols. And I said, how do I post something? He said, press that button, bro. And I said, but what if I press it and it just posts all my photos? He goes, it doesn't work that way. It's not for everyone.
No, and this guy sent me a tweet from someone, and I had a year off acting, I think it was 2018, and I stepped into broadcasting. I was doing some stuff for Fox League, and I thought, look, this will be interesting. They offered me an opportunity to commentate the NRL, you know, which is, the play-by-play. I'm not the colourist. I'm,
and some of the fights, I've seen you promote some of the fights as well.
So I did a year of commentating and really enjoyed it. But it was, if you're going to be a broadcaster, you've got to be a broadcaster. That was you got to give everything to it. So
a lot of homework behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But a guy sent me a tweet, from some punter on the internet, from Twitter, and he goes, Matt Nable, couldn't play, can't act, can't call. Mate, no, I thought that was hilarious. Like, it was really, really clever. But look, if you're not as comfortable with yourself like I am in that space, and you get relatively well known, people know who you are, and you put your stuff out there. Yeah. If you're not comfortable with yourself, and look, mate, I couldn't give two shits. I think it's quite funny, but if you're not, then that's a hard thing to walk into day day going. You suck.
Comes with the territory.
Yeah. So social media for that, I think can be just
But for those under 40,
what you're trying to do, mate.
For those under 40, when you after the age of 40, you stop giving a shit.
Mate, people think of me is not my business. Yeah. I don't care. Mate, I can say that 100% authentically. I don't care. I really. You like me as an actor, great. You don't, it's the same. Yeah. Don't like what I write.
You're not losing sleep over it.
No, I'm not. Nothing.
Yeah.
No. Well, mate, like I said, you just gain a perspective. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Like, really,
It's all temporary. Everything's temporary. This life is temporary. Everything's temporary.
Well, the people, mate, who I don't know them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why am I worried about that?
No bearing on life whatsoever.
No, I think look, if you can have a sense of humour with all that sort of stuff. I mean, look, it's pretty strange what I do. Like I said, I mic stuff up and I pretend to be other people. Like that's pretty well what it is, right? So you take it as seriously as it needs to be taken, right? Yeah. Like, and that's where I put it in my life. I'm not, I'm not losing sleep over a role that I've got to do. Yeah. Not 1 inch, not one second. I'm never intimidated by another actor, a film set. There is nothing there that scares me. What scares me, mate, is losing my children. That's it, right? Yeah. So you put that into perspective and where it sits in your life, and then you've got a healthy relationship with it, then that works. But it's not, I've got a mate who's a cardiothoracic surgeon, and he's operating on people 6 days a week, and he's saving lives, right? Yeah. And he's a beautiful man, and I look at that and go, well, he is actually saving lives. I mean, that's, and he goes to work. He can't make a mistake. I make a mistake, they go do it again.
Yeah, can't.
Or that doesn't work, I'll just delete it.
I'll edit it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
even this podcast, they'll edit the stuff. If I make a mistake, it's the same thing.
There's no stakes to what I do, Moods, right? Yeah. Nothing. Like if I write a bad book or I write a story that people who cares? Yeah. It's a movie. There's no great stakes.
As long as you're healthy, as long as your family's healthy.
There are stakes in me being a son, a brother, a friend, a father, and a husband. And beyond that, mate, it's all fluff.
That's beautifully put. And I hope the listeners take that away as a lesson. Well, if you take anything away, I think it should be that.
When I did the eulogy for my brother, and I said at the start, I said, no one's here for any other reason about the relationship you have with Aaron, and
Yeah.
I wrote about him as a son, as a brother, as a friend, as a father, and as a partner, and that's what it was about. Because, mate, beyond those 5 things, it's all fluff.
It's all
to
cosmetic.
me, that's
it's all superficial.
it's bullshit, mate.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Matt. Mate, we caught up for an hour before this.
Yeah, I know. It's
But
been great, brother.
we've spent some long days together.
We have, man.
On 1%, and I look forward to being by your side, preparing you for the next role. I'd like to thank you very much for coming on. Hopefully, it'll be one of many
man, I'd love
podcasts to come.
Whatever you need, my brother.
You've always been there, and that's always been reciprocated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Much
brother.
love, Mathew Nable.
Love you,
Thank
brother.
you very much. Look forward to seeing you again for the next episode. Assalamu alaikum.